Masechet Eruvin Daf Pe Gimel. I hope you brought a calculator and pen and pencil. We have some calculations to do today. So to review one point from yesterday, not everything, but yesterday we saw the Mishnah was calculating what is the size of two meals that you would need for an Eruv. We had various opinions. Let's only quote Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, who says Kikar Punjon Mabasin Basela. We made the whole calculation and we saw that one loaf, which is good for two meals, is going to be half of a kav, which means 6 betzim. Okay, and that is a halacha when we make nowadays, according to Rambam, if you make an eruv, you would need six betzim. Okay, so 6 betzim is one loaf and two meals. Now, the Mishnah at the end then made other ratios. A half of a loaf, which is called a peras, right? Lifros means to cut. So a half of a loaf is relevant for the halacha of tum'ah, of how long you stay in the leper's house. If you stay that amount of time, kedeh achilat peras, then you would be even your clothes would become tameh. So if a whole loaf is 6 betzim, then a peras is 3 betzim. Okay, good. That's achilat peras. Now half of that, in other words, 1.5 peras is going to be if a kohen eats that much, then he cannot eat terumah because he ate that certain amount, right? So that would be a 1.5 betzah. That would be a chatzi peras, according to the calculation of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. All right. So with that in mind, our daf starts off with a baraita, a tosefta, adding chatzi, chetzia, half of a half of a half of that original amount. In other words, an eighth of it, or that would be 0.75 according to Rabbi Yochanan, a betzah. The tamet tumat ochalim. There's two opinions here. Does that mean that the tumat enough for a food to receive tuma or to give tuma? So let's just say to give something else tuma has to have a certain size, and that would be 0.75 betzim. But according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, according to others, it would be 1 betzah. We'll see. Now, in our Mishnah, it mentioned the whole amount, the half of the amount, and the relevance of a quarter of the amount. Why didn't it mention here this application that's in the Tosefta that the eighth of the amount is relevant to making other food tameh? The answer is mishum de la shavushi orayhu lahadedeh, because it's not actually exact. The amount of a quarter of a loaf is not exactly the same as the amount of food you would need to make something else tameh. So therefore, this Tosefta is giving a rough estimate, but that's why the Mishnah left it out. Now we're going to prove that it's a rough estimate and not exact from these two sources. The Tanya, Kamashiur Chatzi Peras Shete Besim Haser Kim'ah. So half of a peras is 2 betzim less a little bit. That's the Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef omer shete betzim sochakot, smiling. In other words, generous, a little bit more than 2 betzim. Rabbi shete betzim ve'od. Rabbi said 2 plus. How much plus? V'kama ve'od echad me'esrim ba'betzah, an extra 20th. Rabbi, that's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. In his measurements, he would always add a 20th. This will be relevant in a couple minutes. Okay, so that's the standard shiur. V'ilu gabet tumat ochalin tanya. Rabbi Natan v'Rabbi Dosa amru kabesa shamru kamoha v'chlipata. Achim omedim kamoha belo klipata. So regarding tumat ochalim, it's with the peel or without the peel, but it's not exactly the same as these measurements, which are a little bit more than this. This is half of this. But it's not exactly half, because this was a little more than 2 or a little bit less than 2, and that's why the Mishnah left it out, because it's not exact. Good. We brought 2 measurements. They say that an eighth of a besa an eighth of a kav is going to be 1.5 generously. Man chachamim, Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, right? That's what we saw above, because he says a full loaf is 6 betzim, so that means a paras is 3. So that means a quarter of it is 1.5, right? Sorry, a quarter of a loaf, or chatzi paras is 1.5, and that would be chachamim. That's different from the 2 up here. This machloket will be relevant for lots of things, for the size of an eruv, or when we say you have to do something b'chdei achilat peras. So how many betzim is that? All this machloket here is all relevant for that. All right, pishita. Now, isn't this obvious? Chachamim is the same as b'yochanan beroka. Sochakota talash muina. No, because coming to add that it's a generous amount, not the exact 1.5, but the generous one. Okay, good. So that ends that discussion of why the Mishnah did not add in otumat ochalin. And now we get to the main thing where we're going to have lots of calculations. They're not very difficult.
We had enough.
Okay, these are not very difficult, but just if we keep them in order, and I do have a sheet to help us. But ki atad avdimi amad shiger bonyos l'Rabbi Modia de kundis demin nausa v'sheh Rabbi Matan ushba esre be'in. So this person came to the Yehuda Nasi, and he had a measure of a se'ah from a place called Nausa, and they seem to have had a old tradition of how much a se'ah is, and so he brought him this measure. Here's wheat that is a se'ah according to the people in this city. And so the Yehuda wanted to figure out how many betzim are in it, and he measured out 217. Okay, that's our first number here, 217 betzim in one se'ah according to the people in that city. Now the Gemara is going to ask about this. Ha se'ah dehecha. What se'ah are they talking about? See, the size of a se'ah changed over time. It was like inflation. Like how much was $1 100 years ago. So too with this volume measure. In the desert, when the Bnei Yisrael were walking in the desert, that means the Torah law, we say there's 144 betzim to a se'ah. Then during Bet HaMikdash times, v'di Yerushalmit me'ah shiv'im v'shalosh shavya. Then the inflation went to 173. Now you need 173 betzim for one se'ah. And later in Roman times, v'di siporit matayim v'sheva havyan, became 207. So here's the problem. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi got this present, and he calculated at 217, but 217 does not fit any of the traditional measurements that would be relevant. 217 is less than 144, 173, and 207. So we're going to try to figure out how we want to try to relate it, because we know that this was a good tradition from the city, and the Yehuda Nasi authorized it. So how can we make this work? So we'll try two ways. Le'olam de siporit. In fact, we'll go with the 207. And maybe the siporit is missing the amount that you would take for challah. And the amount that city gave included the challah. So how much is that? Challah, we're going to prove this in the end of the sugya. Chalata kamahavyan temaneh. So 120, challah is 1/24th. We saw that in yesterday's daf, or the previous day, right? For a household, it's 1/24th of the total. So 1/24th here of 217, right? 217 divided by 24 is 8.6. So if we take 8.6 and add it to the largest one of Sipori plus 207, you get 215.6. Well, it's closer, but it's still more than one off of 217. So that doesn't work. Then we're going to try the next thing. I'll just show it to you here, and then we'll see it inside. That his measurements were always off a 20th. We saw that just now, that when he has a 20th extra in the previous sugya. So 217 divided by 20, something about his scoops were a little different in size, a little smaller. So if that would give you 10.3. 10.3 added to 217 does give us 217.3. So his 217.3 eggs is the same as everyone else's 207 eggs. So it actually works out that this city, they had the right amount. It fit with the Sipori, which makes sense. This is the Roman times the latest one. So the chala didn't work. Odot. It's called the odot. The extra did it be shedi alaihu and added ihachi havaletefe. Hold on, but that would be a little bit too much because that's 217.3. It's a third betza too much.
Okay.
That's all right. Kevan de lahave kabesa la hashib le. We could round it down. This is like a gematria. You could be off by one. Okay, no, it's even less than one. All right, good. So now that we mentioned all of these, let's go into it further. Tanu Rabbanan or Tenor Rabbanan, Se'a Yerushalmit Yetera al Midbarit Shetut, Veshel Siporit Yetera al Yerushalmit Shetut, Nimset Shel Siporit Yetera al Midbarit Shelish. Okay, when we say a sixth, all ratios in the Talmud always they work a little differently than we do, right? We would call it a fifth. They mean a sixth of the bigger amount. Okay, but it's not too hard to figure that out. So as follows, taking the middle number Yerushalmit, divide by a sixth, you get 28.8. So add that 6 to the 144. In other words, take 173, multiply by 5/6. That's what I'm doing, right? So 6 is 28. Add that to the smaller number, 28.8.144, and you get 172. It's a tiny bit off, but that works. 172, sorry, 172.8. I didn't add the 0.8. Okay, so it's basically 173. So that works, right? A 5/6 of Yerushalmit is midbarit. Let's try for Sipori. 207 divided by 6 is 34.5. Adding that to the 173, and you get back 207.5. So in fact, this is 6 bigger than that, and this is a 6 bigger than this. Fine, that works. Now the last part of it says that this one is supposed to be a third bigger than this. Right now, this is a problem because it doesn't work. Where's my calculations?
Hey, it's not a third. Why are you saying a third? It's a 16th and a 16th.
It's supposed to, that the last line of this baraita here says Nimset shel siporit yimtera midbarit shelish. Right, that's a third bigger. The Braita seems to be saying, well, if this is a 6 bigger than this, and this is a 6 bigger than this, then the biggest one will be a third bigger than that, because a 6 plus a 6 is a third. But it doesn't really work that way, right? If I have to give you 100 and they take 10%, now you have 90. 10% of 90 is only 9, not another 10, right? So it's going to be, ends up being a third of Sipori is 69. And so that is not sufficient to make up the difference. So now we're going to try a bunch of things. We're going to try every single one to try to figure out what it is. What we need is 63, right? 207 minus 144. The difference between Sipori Midbar is in fact 63. So we're going to try out all of these numbers to see which one works. The smallest is too small. A third of the middle one is still too small. A third of the biggest one, Sipori, is 69. And the third of 217, that's the going back here, the Biuda Nasis, that might come and that might be helpful. But none of them are 63. Okay, let's go through the exercise and see how that could work. So, Shilish Teman, what do you mean in the end here that the biggest one is a third bigger than the smallest one? Which one? Maybe you'll start with the smallest amount. A third of the smallest amount is bigger than the difference between the biggest and smallest. In other words, 63. No, that's no good. It's only 48. And we need 63. So that's no good. Maybe it's the third of the middle one is the same as the difference between the biggest and the smallest. That's only 58. So it's 58 less a third, 57.3. So that doesn't work either. Ve'ilu udvat shitin utulat. Again, we need 63. Ve'ela desipori shlish tida kama have shib'a neche hada. That's 70 minus 1. That's 69. Ve'ilu udvat shishim ush v'shalosh. We don't need 69. We need 63. Ella, okay, so all that didn't work. Ella, amar b'yirmiyah hachika amar. Nimset se'ah shel sipori yetera al midbarit. Karov l'shlish shela.
Uh-huh.
Ushlish shela karov lemechesa de midbarit. So what he says is we have an almost. If you take the number 69 here, right? This 207 divided by 3 is 69. That is close to half. That is close to 63, which is also close to half of the 144 divided by 2. So his point is that this third number and this half number, 69 and 72, are both similar to 63. Okay, now this really is not very important. I mean, how, 63 it's still 3 away, 69 is still 3 away from 72 and 6 away from 63. So, how is this significant that there are numbers that are close to each other? This is, this cannot be what the Baraita meant, wanted to tell you that these numbers are close. So this is Ravina's question. Matkif la Rabina, mideh karov ketani. And the Baraita, did it say that this is close to that number and that's close to the other number? No, it says exact. It's almost comical, this answer, right? 63 is similar to 69. It's not similar. What are you talking about? Ela amar Ravina, he has a better solution. Hachi ka'amar, nimset shelish shel sipori beve'odiyot shel Rabbi. So a third of the B's calculation. It's still the sipori one, but usually we count it as 207. The B counted it as 217 in his measurement. So a third of 217 is 72.3. Is yetera al mechsa shel midbarit sheli shel besa, is very close to half of the midbar of the smallest one of 144. Because half of 144 is 72. So that's what we end up saying. We take 217 divided by 3 is 72.3, and half of 144 is 72. So these numbers are very close, and that's what the Baraita must have meant. All right. So that concludes the.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Was all this and what we saw last Shabbat also, that Pythagorean theorem and so on, is all this just an exercise in math among the rabbis, among the Sefaraim or the Stamites?
I don't think they're doing
Are
math
they
for
really?
mathematics'
Think
sake.
they're really concerned with this little bit of difference?
No, I think
Practically
they're trying to resolve, like every other, like all the rest of Shas. They're trying to resolve Baraitot and Mishnayot and statements of earlier Amoraim. And we have this Baraita that gives a ratio, and they got to figure out how it works.
I understand. Is this figuring out with this these acrobatics and so on? Is this just show? Is there anything equivalent in the Greek or Roman writings like this?
Well, I mean, it's any, think of modern halacha when we want to figure out how much is the kezayit, how much matzah do we have to eat, right? So you have all these kinds of calculations. So this is relevant to any calculation of measurements.
Okay.
I don't think it's pure mathematics for mathematics' sake.
No,
right.
They have something to discuss,
Yeah.
and in the discussion, they're making a math lesson or showing off or teaching.
No, I don't think the goal is for mathematics, but okay. Tanu Rabbanan, Reshit arisotechem. So we want to figure out how much dough do you need to have in order to be required to take challah. So Reshit arisotechem means the first of your dough you have to bring as a gift. This is a source for challah. Kedei sotechem, but you don't bring, if you're just making a little roll, you don't bring, it has to be enough for your dough. What is that? Kamai sotechem, kedei isat midbar, should be at least the amount of dough that they would have used in the desert to make a meal. Kamai isat midbar, dichti ba'omed asiri taifahu. Right, we have another passage, omed la gulgolet. Each person eats an omed. So that would be a meal's worth, important amount that would be required, and that is 1/10 of an ephah. So how much is that? Well, an ephah is 3 se'ah, which is 18 kav. 18 quarters of a kav, also known as a log, is 72. So that means there's 72 would be a full ephah, and this is asirit of an ephah. So 72 quarters of a kav divided by 10 is 7.2. Okay, so in the end you have 72 quarter kavs would be the amount. Mikan amru shiv'a reva'im kemach ve'od chayevet b'chala. 7 quarters plus or more would be required. Okay, in other words, 7.2 quarters. Shehen shisha shel Yerushalmit, shehen hamisha shel sipori. Okay, so when we have 7.2 of the smallest measurements from the desert, that is equivalent to where we said that each one is related to each other by a sixth. So 7.2, 5/6 of that, in order to get the Yerushalmi measurements, would be 6, and the Roman measurements, Sipori measurements, would be 5/6 of that, which is 5. And so now we have all of the measurements for challah, and now that we have that, with some good health advice. Right, this is the proper amount. You see in the Torah, this is how much a person should eat in a day. If you eat more than that, it's a glutton. If you eat less than that, then it will be bad for your digestive system. Don't eat too much, don't eat too little, just the right amount of calories. All right, next Mishnah. אנשי חסד ואנשי מרפסת שכחו ולא ערבו, כל שגבוה 10 טפחים למרפסת, פחות מכאן לחסר. So now, usually in a courtyard, you have multiple houses all around on the same level. But if they're on different levels, it ends up being basically the same law. You have lower level, upper level, and let's say they made an eruv, the lower level made their own eruv. The upper level made their own eruv, but they didn't make an eruv with each other. So then the courtyard is common area, and that is going to be a problem. So anything that so this is similar to other cases we saw before when you have two courtyards and something in the middle that's dividing them. That wall, right? Who gets to use the space on the wall? Whoever is it's closest to or easiest to use. So anything that's 10. More than 10 tefachim, that goes to mirpeset. So for example, you have a pole here that's 10 tefachim high, else I have some fruit on there. Well, since it's closer to the upper story, they get access to that. Pachot mikan lechaser, the things low down, that goes to the people on the lower floor. So it's basically taking what we know horizontally and applying it vertically. חוליית הבור והסלע גבוהים 10 טפחים למרפסת, פחות מכאן לחסר. So have the embankment around the cistern. If it's 10 tefachim high, it goes to the second story. Less than that, it goes to the first story. We actually have some pictures here, right? So if you have this is higher, if you have a hole, but the sides of the hole are higher than 10 tefachim, also it can be used by the people in the upstairs and the second story. But one caveat, only if it's close to the porch. אבל במופלגת אפילו גבוה 10 טפחים לחסר. באיזו סמוכה? כל שנה רחוקה 4 טפחים. So that this platform or this wall has to be close for tefachim, very close. 4 tefachim to the balcony. If it's out in the middle of the courtyard, then that's get easier access to people on the first floor, even though it's something high up. So only if it's very close and high.
That's Levud they're talking, right?
That's the what?
Levud.
Yeah, that would be no. Well, lavud
But
is three
Lavud is
usually.
3, except for the one opinion that says it's 4, but Rabban
Right.
Gamliel says 4.
Right. So I don't think it's because of level. Maybe it's just so you can kind of reach out and take it. You don't have to go down
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
across and
Yeah,
back
yeah,
up.
yeah,
Once you have to
yeah.
go down, across, back up, then the people on the first floor would actually be closer. Okay. Now peshita, isn't this all very obvious? Lazeh bepetach velazeh bepetach. Hainu chalon sheben sheteh haserot. Right. This is the same as horizontally. If you had two courtyards and there was a window between, then nobody could use the window because that's right in between. There's no picture for that. Okay. And it's also we're going through a number of cases. Most of them are obvious, but then we're going to ask questions that are not obvious. So variations of what they said in the Mishnah. Lazeh bizrika v'lazeh bizrika, hainu kotel sheben sheteh haserot. So if you have a case where both would need to throw something, like a wall that was between them. And each one could only access it by throwing upwards, and this person by throwing upwards. Then that's the same as a wall between them, and neither can use it. If you have a ditch a ditch down between two courtyards, and each one they can only get it by lowering something down into it, so it's equally difficult for both residents, then neither can use it. And so any setup that you would have where both have to raise it up or both have to lower something in order to use that space, they couldn't use it. Okay, so now these are also obvious but different. If one has an easy opening to it and the other one has to reach up and throw it up, Hainu de Rav Huna amar Rav Nachman. Lazeh bepetach v'lazeh b'shulshul, hainu de Rav Shizbi amar Rav Nachman. And if one has to go down and the other one is straight, that's like these other rulings of that we saw several dapim ago, which were these setups. The picture, you need pictures here. So for this person, let's say this is all level, right? Here's some kind of a separation between the two courtyards. This person is a lower level. For him to use this space, he has to raise it up, throw it up here. For this person, it's level with, it's very short or level with his ground. Therefore, this person is easier for him to use this boundary, and this person is harder. Therefore, it belongs to him. He can go and put things on it and take things from it, and this person cannot use it. And okay, that looks about the same. And here's the opposite. If you have something that is low down. Okay. Low down. I don't know a picture of the low down. Right.
That's it. That's the ditch. The previous one is a ditch.
This is a ditch?
No, the one after that.
This?
Maybe
this
looks
like
a
wall.
ditch.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's right. This would be like a ditch for this person. So this person could make it easily, and this person would have to lower himself down. Then it belongs to this person because that would be easier for him. So all those are simple cases. But what about this following? Okay, that is this one. So here, if you can tell, this guy lives higher up, and he would go 10 tefachim down, and you have the border. 10 tefachim down from the border is where this person lives, right? The difference in elevation between this guy and this guy is 20. So this is right in between and is equally difficult to use for each person, because this person would have to throw things up there and this person would have to lower things down there. So if it's between raising and lowering, is that considered equal, or is one easier than the other, right? That's the question. So the answer is Amarav Shinehen Asurin. It's equally difficult, so both can't use it. Shmuel Amar Notnin Oto Lazeh Shebirshulshul Shelazeh Tashmisho Benachat Velazeh Tashmisho Bekashe. Now it's always easier to lower things down. You have gravity with you than to have to throw things up, and so it belongs to the upper person who can lower things down there. And that's the general rule that applies to all these cases. If there's any in-between space that is on the border and so belongs to both of them, but for one of them he has easier access to it and the other one has more difficult access, then we give the rights of usage to the one who has easier access. And we're going to try to prove Shemuel's opinion in the next stuff. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen ve'amen.